Hey, everybody, welcome back to this Think Business Live. Looking forward to talking with Karl Staib of dig2fly.com. Karl, it's great to connect with you today, and I'm excited to talk about the Dig2Fly method. You've been on the show before. You've been part of and joined my live coaching group and done your exercise, which was great. And I invited Karen Larson, who's co-founder at clearbrandstrategy.com. She's a branding and marketing firm, and they serve professional advisors and corporate marketers and entrepreneurs. And she was part of she's part of the live coaching group and experienced the Dig2Fly method. And so I thought it'd be fun if we both interviewed you. And it's something I want to do as part of this podcast is just kind of invite different co-hosts, periodically. I texted Karen about 2 hours ago, so I'm glad you can make it work, Karen. So Karl, welcome to the show. I love your method and what you do with dig2fly.com. And basically it's, the foundation, which I'm just going to read right off your website. Do you want to be more productive and relaxed at work? Well, I think especially now, I was going to say, I can't even say post-COVID, but while we're still in COVID, I think everybody's trying to figure that out. So let's rewind and talk to the Think community, how you even got to this, how you got to Dig2Fly.
Yeah, it's funny. So I kept a gratitude journal. My father was passing and he was in the ICU, and it was one of those like, wow, where's my life heading moments, because he was one of my best friends. But also, somebody that I wanted to be like, but didn't want to be like, I didn't want to repeat a lot of those same mistakes he did. And so what I've always, appreciated about him was, he stuck to systems. He really knew how to make sure that he delivered when he said he was going to deliver. And I think when you have that honesty with yourself, you're going to be productive. But the key part here is to have that inner voice be somebody that is relaxed, calm, and encouraging. And that's what the Dig2Fly method helps with. It kind of helps you dig deep, understand what's going on inside your thoughts and emotions. And then you're able to fly high because you have that support within yourself, and you don't need anybody else to validate you.
So how does the method work? How do you dig deep?
So it's one that I kept a gratitude journal, and I really loved digging into what I was grateful for and why I was grateful for it. But what I realized, it was just a piece of the bigger picture of like really understanding yourself and understanding how your mind works. And I went to the doctor a few years ago, and he asked me I went for my foot. I was having pain in my foot, and he's like, well, what's the pain threshold? And it was this little light bulb moment of like, oh, we need to level set with ourselves first. And so the first question is, on a scale of 0 to 10, how difficult of a struggle is this? 0 being nothing at all, 10 being completely overwhelming. And what it does, it creates an emotional buffer. And when you start to separate yourself from the thoughts and emotions and realize like you have a flexible mindset, and that's the beauty of living the lives that we do. We can look at a situation any way we want. And so then it just started snowballing for me. And I started thinking like, why is maybe one of the most important questions we can ask ourselves. And, Socratic method, Socrates over 2,000 years ago, would dig through why. I mean, he was not liked in many parts of his country because he never really took the face value answer. He kept digging and digging and digging, and it's tough. Mm-hmm. And it's tough when we do that to ourselves. But when we do, that's when we start becoming more honest with ourselves. And that's when we start saying, oh, I see, this is what I'm really upset about. Because very rarely is it, if someone's, treats you poorly, very rarely is it just your fault. It's a combination of things for them. And then it comes, the third question is expectations. What are you expecting out of this? And that is so important because we put expectations on everything. We put it on our spouses. We put it on our friends. We put it on our clients. And when they don't meet those expectations, we usually get angry. We get sad. And that's when the struggles start to begin. Yeah. And that's when I have my clients think about what they're grateful for, because now you're starting to flip it and you're starting to expand your mindset. You're starting to see, whoa, I can look at this situation, like my father passing, also as a chance to grow in this situation, as a chance to connect with him. Mm-hmm. And then the last question is opportunities. Okay, like now that you've shifted your mindset with gratitude, the fourth question, you go to the fifth question is like, well, where there's opportunities in there, and there's internal and external. Internal is like, okay, where am I going to point my arrow? And then the actions, which are everybody needs, like God, says, God's sent a boat to that guy. Everybody knows the parable of the guy on the house. And he's like, I send you a boat and you don't take it. I send you a team of people. Yeah. Right. And then
a helicopter,
a helicopter.
Yeah.
And you don't take it.
What do you want me to do? Right.
Yeah. What else do you need? But these are things, but we have to see
I wasn't
them.
going to die. Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
We don't see them. Mm-hmm. And there's people, we need to ask for help. We need to be able to, and these opportunities, we have to make them. And like, John and I now have a relationship because we mutually benefit each other. We bring value to each other. And that's the key to business.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. When I had you on the show for the first time, it was a recorded one that actually hasn't even gone live yet. And so I wanted to have you on, and so I'm so glad that you're here. But you kind of walked me through the method, which was great, and still helped me. I mean, I think we recorded that 2 or 3 months ago. And so my question to you is, how do people find the space to not just do the exercise, right? Because you can read the questions, right. You can then do the exercise, but then how do you live the results? Right. Yes. How do you implement it into your day? How do you execute daily and make it stick?
Yeah.
Right.
And this is different for everyone. Yeah. This is where we have to do a better job of, and that's where the inner voice comes in when, simple thing of like exercising, right? Like, okay, we know it helps us with our health. It helps us with our energy levels. It helps us clear our minds, but so many of us don't do it. And I think it comes back to having systems and having systems that fit your personality.
Yeah.
I had a client, he loved pickleball, but it's so fun.
Yeah.
It's so fun, but he kept trying to run. Like, it was like, he was like, no, I'm going to run. Like, my dad used to run and I could see. But then it was what he realized is like it didn't fit his personality. And when he started scheduling time for pickleball, he started losing weight. He felt better. That's when everything clicked for him.
Right.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that you talk about is journaling. And how does journaling play into this process? For me, it's like when I get a journal, there's that blank page and I don't know what to do with it. I know that, I know I'm grateful for things and I know I'm, but I don't know how to process my thoughts on the page. So how does a journal tie into this process? And how is it?
Before you answer that, I just want to say one thing on that, Karl. 20-some years ago, Karen, I bought, it was referred to me, The Artist's Way, a book called The Artist's Way. Great. And so me
being an artist, I get that.
You get it. And so I just bought 3 new copies. I bought one one for me and one for each of my kids, because I want them to read the book.
Mm-hmm.
I told them if they read the book, I'll give them $100. Right? Just read the book and discuss it with me for 15 minutes.
If
And I'll
I
give you
read the book, will you give me $100?
If you read the book, I'll buy you a coffee. Again. I'll buy you a coffee. Right? We'll go for coffee. But I just think it's one of the things it talks about is the power of, journaling. And I just want to kind of mention that book for a second. So, Karl, I didn't mean to kind of, take over, but go ahead. So talk about journaling.
No, and it's interesting you brought this up because journaling has been something I've been doing for over 20 years, and didn't really realize how powerful it was until I really got consistent with it. And I'm actually working on an article. I'm calling it Directive Journaling, because I think that we can start developing our inner voice and use it as a way to direct ourselves, because we're the director of our thoughts, right? Like we engage with each other. I can say, oh, that's a beautiful scarf that you have, right? And I can really appreciate that. Now I'm directing my thoughts towards your scarf, and I'm directing it towards, appreciating you and your style. Now I could also direct my thoughts to, something negative and something that, tears you down. And this is what we do inside ourselves and do to other people. I still do this. I notice little things like, a hair in somebody's nose that's sticking out. And it's like, it's so minimal and so small. When we focus on those things, then we're building our synapses. So our neural networks, the things that you do often, fire together. So your synapses are kind of connecting and building strength. So the more positive you are, the more resilient you are, the more you're building up those synapses and you're building strength in those areas. And so what I think with journaling is a good technique is not just to say the gratitude, but what are you going to take action on the next day? And I think that to me, and every Sunday I'll do Dig to Fly. So I'll go through the 5. Whenever I'm struggling with anything, I'll go through it. But on Sunday, I'll sit there and just kind of contemplate. It's kind of like my prayer as well. I'll talk to God and kind of check in with him and, really make that my time. I don't go to church, but I have a spiritual practice. And so what I do at the end of every day, though, is I look back on what I did well, because you're strengthening those synapses. Like, oh, I reached out to John today. I checked in with him, and I'm strengthening that relationship. I reached out to somebody new that I don't know, and I asked if I could be on their podcast, or asked if I could, if they wanted to be on my podcast. So then I'm like, oh, that's good. Like I'm saying, good job, Karl. I'm building that inner voice. And then I write, what's one thing I can do tomorrow to make, what I want to accomplish happen? And just that question of like, oh, okay, well, I want to reach out to 2 more people, or I want to write a blog post, or I want to, work on my sales page. And what I do then is I actually schedule that time on my calendar. And so when you schedule that time on your calendar, and I do this in my journal, and I'll be like, okay, from 2:30 to 3. And I try not to overdo it, but that scheduling, and that's where that directive journaling can come in. You're directing yourself and deciding where you want to go that day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's kind of like putting it out there, put it like you say it and it will happen, or you make that, you promise, it's a promise to yourself, and hopefully it'll make it happen.
You plant that seed. But the key part is scheduling it, right? Yeah. Like many of my clients are like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And then it's like that last hard part to get across the finish line is figuring out the plan of, even if it's 10 minutes, like, okay, I'm going to do this. Just take 10 minutes to do this thing. And I equate it to, I used to hate broccoli. And so I used to just cut up little snippets of broccoli because it's so good for you. Mm-hmm. And I add it to my plate, and then I wouldn't eat it for 3 days, but I just added it there. So I felt comfortable with it. Then on the 4th day, I would eat the smallest, tiniest bite that I could. And so I did that for a week. And then I added more. After 30 days, I stopped. I was like, okay, I'm going to take a week off from broccoli. And I missed broccoli. So I was like, the same thing we can do with our thoughts.
Yeah.
We just add little positive things like, oh, negative thoughts there. Okay, negative thought. That's okay. Like, I didn't like this about her, but then I found something positive. So that's where directing your thoughts comes in.
Yeah. I love what you're talking about, and I love the idea that what you're talking about when it comes to using your calendar. There's a great book that talks about he's really kind of the father of the 3-week habit, Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, which is a great book for anybody who's looking into that. A side note, they need to invent a good nose hair clipper because there is not a good one on the market. So I just want to comment on that.
That's earlier. Why they're all sticking out all over.
Oh, it's the worst. It's the worst. Right. So a couple things. So I really kind of want to dig into this space a little bit of courage, and the courage of ritual, and the courage of asking yourself these questions and giving yourself this designated time. So I love how you're talking about, I do it on Sunday. So you're not saying you have to do this every day, but I kind of make an appointment with myself, going back to your calendar. I'm a big advocate of that. And I'm giving myself this time, and I'm going to ask myself these questions in silence, or, not while I'm watching TV, sending texts, doing this, da, 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 da. And so just talk a little bit about a first step, 5-minute or so ritual that people can kind of start to maybe adopt and adapt into their busy, hectic schedule and lives.
Yeah. So one of the best things for small business owners, for people who are career oriented, at the end of the day, take time to process what went on that day, the good and the bad. I focus on gratitude first, things that I really enjoyed that day, things that worked out well, and then things I learned from. And I say learn from because a lot of times we can label it mistakes, right? And then we beat ourselves up about those. But the key is just to see them as things that you grew from, that you saw and you're like, oh, okay, I could do this a little bit better. And just take 10 minutes. Like if you at 4:50 at the end of the day till 5, you're going to sit there quietly, or 5 to 5:10, whatever your last meeting is. Just schedule that time for 10, 15 minutes and just review your day, what you did well and what you learned from. And that can really make a huge difference and help with your journaling. And I suggest, writing it out, not just thinking about it, because the more you can say it or see it, you're deepening that impact of how you're using it to grow.
Yeah.
So do you recommend journaling at the end of the day versus the morning? Like I know Julie Cameron and the Artist Way, it's, journaling pages and it's a morning thing. Do you recommend it at the end of the day as a reflection?
Yeah, I do. And I think this is a missed opportunity, because our brains, what we think about, the most impactful thing, and the 3 things we think about at the end of the day are the things that stick with us. That's going into our long-term memory. So what happens a lot, we say something stupid in a meeting. We don't turn off our camera at the right moment, and, we pick our nose or something like that. And
I've done that.
And
I've done that.
You just get absent-minded. All of a sudden, you're like, "Oh, I got an itch," and you're like, "Oh, I'm on camera."
Wow. I didn't mean to do that. Right.
and we don't process it. We beat ourselves up. We're like, "Carl, that was so stupid. Why'd you do that?" and then we're like, move on to the next thing. But this is the stuff that pings in the back of our head and then goes into our subconscious, and it creates that inner voice that's negative and bullyish. So I do, at the end of the day, that's when I find is the best time for me to journal, because then I'm thinking I'm processing it, and then I'm thinking of the positive things that I did, and that's the stuff that's going into my long-term memory. And man, like my stress levels have gone down, like my anxiety. I used to get terrible headaches stress headaches coming up the back. They still happen, but it's so far infrequent, and I notice them sooner. And it's because of just doing that daily work.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then you can, like you mentioned earlier, then you can, kind of plan your day and how you're going to handle things the next day.
Yeah. And you're prepared and you're calm, and you can sleep better. And that's to me, like, man, getting a good night's sleep is the cure to so many of my ailments.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Tell everybody, Karl, where they can find you, connect with you, and download, all of your information. Yeah,
they can go to digtofly.com. And so that is the main hub. And there they can get the Dig to Fly method printable. And so it's got those 5 questions. You can print it out, and then you can actually try it for yourself. And then also my podcast, Dig to Fly podcast. A lot of it's amazing how we're going to, I think with COVID especially, we're going to more auditory, more visual. And I love auditory. I listen to podcasts all day long.
Yeah.
And that's finally, I was like, I'm going to launch it. So I launched it this past October. So
good.
Those are the 2 best places.
It's excellent.
Have I been on your podcast?
No, but I'd love to have you.
Yeah, I'd love to be on. So would Karen. I think, I think we'd be great guests. All right, Karl, you ready for a quick speed round?
Yes.
Okay. Finish this sentence. One thing that everybody can start doing to find 1 minute of space for themselves is
before their next meeting. Don't just go straight up to the hour, work, and then hop on your meeting. Take a minute, breathe, take a moment to collect your thoughts. You're going to be so much more impactful in that meeting if you just have a little bit of focus time before you start it. Yeah.
I just want to say one thing on breath. I'm a big meditator, and I'm a big believer in breath. And one of the things I've been doing is Wim Hof. He's known as the Iceman, and I highly recommend it. I'm not a doctor, but check it out. Wim Hof. It's the Wim Hof method. So, all right, good.
Cool.
Great. Okay. What's the most recent book you've read?
Oh, man.
Or your favorite book?
I have The Art of Living by Thich Nhat Hanh. I got it right here. I'm at, let's see, halfway through.
It's on my list inscribed so I could to read.
It's like a meditative experience. It's fantastic.
Excellent.
The Art of Living?
Yeah.
All right. I'm relaxed just hearing it and looking at the cover. The best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
Oh, man. So many. Be yourself. And every day I struggle with this because I think, who are we? And we're ever changing. But the more that I dig deep, the more I uncover and, become more honest with myself, and it makes me happier. So, if you're making choices based on what other people think, it's usually the wrong one. It's got to come from your heart.
It's great. I love what you're talking about, Karl. Digtofly.com. Do you want to be more productive and relaxed at work? I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your thoughts. A couple of things I just want to kind of recap as we finalize. The power of finding some sacred space for yourself, the power of asking yourself questions, the same questions, and that create internal growth, the power of what you talk about of internal awareness and how you can grow, on how to turn your struggles and stress into something that actually works for you, and to really just, build the habit, right? Build the habit, whether it's 1 minute or a couple minutes, build the habit. Yours is on Sunday. And most importantly, one of the things you've been talking about, and everything you talked about was important, but is use your calendar and make an appointment with yourself. And that, I think, is so important. As a business coach who works with successful people who are stuck to get them unstuck, I am always grateful and honored to have guests like you and all guests who can help get people unstuck. And so I really appreciate it. And your method helped me get unstuck when the first time we spoke, and I'm very grateful for that, and I love it. Think Community, if you want another tool to get unstuck, you can download my books at johndwoskin.com for free. I'm a big advocate of giving things away for free so we can help educate and just make everybody more effective. So thank you so much, digtofly.com. Karen, always great having a co-host on the show. Clearbrandstrategy.com. You guys are a branding and marketing firm. You've been on the show a bunch of times as well. I will let you close out, and any closing thoughts. And Karl, I appreciate it. Think Community, thank you so much. Karen, I'll let you close.
Oh, thanks everybody for, I hope everybody listens. I think this was wonderful. Thank you so much, Karl. I know that when I first heard about the process and the Dig to Fly process, it was a huge aha moment for me, and I hope it is for everybody else.
Thank you. I had a blast. Yeah. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
All right. Stay on the line, everybody. Thanks everybody. Think Community, digtofly.com. Reach out to Karl. Have less stress in your life and enjoy, right? All right. Take it easy, everybody.